Right now, the nation is gripped with rugby fever. As Kiwis, we love it.
Today we take a look at another side of rugby, and it's caused some hot debate.
The game has been made safer, but serious injuries still happen.
So what price are we paying for our love of the game?
And 8, 2, 3, 4.
You loved rugby.
Oh yeah, I love rugby and I almost died for it on the Anzac Day.
No!
People are getting more powerful, faster, stronger, bigger, and the hits are getting more and more lethal.
I never saw rugby itself as a culprit, and didn't it would have been pointless to focus negative hatred or energy on the game.
Well, he was very near death, as you can appreciate, and it was only a flicker of the thumb that saved him, really.
Yeah, rugby is one of the sports where the risk or the chances of having traumatic brain injury pretty high. There was one study in Australia, for example, in non-professional rugby players, and that study found that about 10% of rugby players have a traumatic brain injury within a year of playing the games. People sustaining significant brain injuries and playing rugby should seriously consider not playing rugby anymore, because they expose themselves to a very high risk of severe consequences.
Sports journalist Richard Bogg is concerned about the long-term consequences of consecutive concussion from rugby. International research into NFL players is alarming.
Just from reading the data, it seems that they're finding that consecutive head knocks, and not even concussion knocks, subpar concussions, are amounting up to something suggests serious brain disease, CTE I think they're calling it. Unfortunately they can't diagnose it or find it until they do autopsies, and obviously the players are dead at that stage, so it's a very serious escalation and trend, and something that's probably always been there, but they're only now finding the research and the technology to isolate it.
Around the world, retired rugby players are starting to speak out about the lasting effects of one too many knocks to the head. And what are some of the symptoms these guys are experiencing?
Aggression, depression, the memory loss, migraine headaches, enough of a disruption, according to the players involved, to mess up their marriages, their families, to cause complete dislocation with the people around them and the environment around them. Ongoing problems, usually deteriorating, and some of them with symptoms that are far worse of the early symptoms of Alzheimer's. So it just seems that we're finding out more about it as we go along, and the results right now aren't very edifying.
Daryl Sabin took blows to the head on the rugby field, not once, but several times. 2 years ago, one final tackle left him with a severe brain injury.
I mean, it was rugby that gave me this head injury. It was rugby that was getting me out of this head injury, and it was my dad's hard work at the start, and now my hard work.
Daryl was he was a real go-to player, like a tomahawk cruise missile. So up here, where rugby had become thugby, if his head happened to be sticking out the side of a ruck, it was fair game. And so he did take a lot of knocks.
Did you think that you might have a really serious head injury one day when you were playing rugby?
Well, no, I didn't.
So what was your dad's advice about playing rugby?
No, he was okay with it at the start. But when I had a few head injuries, yeah, he was adamant. Yeah, and he went down to his room and said, Daryl, you shouldn't play, and talked to me for ages. But I was adamant I wanted to play.
Mike Sabin had to fight to convince people of the danger his son was in. Proof there's a lack of understanding about head injury in rugby.
So I got some of the guys that I'd played rugby with in the Northland team to come and see him and sort of say, hey, look, Daryl, you know, like, time to call it. It's not worth it. And that worked for about a year. And the bug got him again and he was looking like he was going to play. And I just contacted the rugby union and said, look, my son is not safe to play and you can't sanction him being on the field. He doesn't know he's a danger to himself in that regard. And we managed to sort of put it to bed for a year, and then a week before his accident he turned up here at home and he looked a bit busted up like he'd been in a fight, and I said, oh, what happened? You know, he says, oh, I played rugby.
Mike made a desperate last-minute attempt to prevent Daryl from playing any more rugby that season. He played one more game and it almost killed him.
I took the ball up from a tap penalty and I got tackled backwards. Yeah, got tackled backwards and then got assisted off the field. Yeah, and then I fell into a catastrophic bleed on the brain.
I didn't recognise him. His head was so swollen from the surgery. So in my heart I was saying he's not going to die, but when I looked at him, I thought he was already gone to some extent. But anyway, the first thing I needed to do was make my peace with Daryl, and I held his hand, I spoke to him, and I explained, I said to him, look, I know why you played, and you know, I said I was okay with it, and I understood it. And I needed him to know that if he wasn't going to make it, that the last thing he remembered wasn't me being upset about the fact that he was going to play. So I made my peace with him, and then I said, but if you're still in there and you can make it, then you need to fight, and I'll fight with you. So go if you're gone, and go knowing that I'm okay with it. But if you can fight, then fight. We'll have to do another lap of the beach at low tide. I think it's the macho sort of Kiwi way. You know, you just sort of walk it off and carry on. I've done it. I've been concussed, I've been knocked out, and I've tried to convince people that I'm okay to play on. And you know, the mandatory 3-week stand down, which is the IRB standard, is such a blunt instrument.
There is the attitude, I think, in rugby that it's a bit effeminate to cry out of the game for any reason apart from being almost flatly unconscious. So as soon as you've had a serious knock, if you show that you want to leave the field, it's seen as a sign of weakness. And no one wants to do that in rugby, especially in any collision sport, because it's all about courage and ticker and all the cliches you hear about manning up and things like that.
The reality is that head trauma is an ongoing thing in any combative sport, which needs to be, in my view, better managed. In other words, when you start to see a pattern developing, it needs to be explored. Now, I'd argue that in the senior ranks and in the professional ranks, it is, because you have very expert medical opinions all the time. But the vast majority of people don't play at that level. They're playing at club level, a long, long, long way from any medical expertise.
We like to show that we're doing the right things at elite level. But below that, I think everyone thinks it's a bit of a joke. You know, everyone laughs as a player staggers around still, looking punch drunk. Everyone thinks that's quite funny and amusing still. And when they come off the field, I think that sort of attitude is shared. So quite often they're not getting the right treatment, they're not getting the right supervision. And they're not getting the right information and advice on what to do next. So I think it's quite a serious issue, and it's escalating, it's getting worse.
Father and son have worked together tirelessly for the last 2 years to get Daryl back on his feet. Added support came from an unexpected source.
Again, it's just one of those weird twists of fate, but Graham Henry, the All Black coach, his brother-in-law was in the space beside Daryl in critical care. And so Graham learnt of Daryl's fate and actually left a note for Daryl, which I put in a bag and put under his pillow, and I used to read it to him every day.
And I'm certain if it had not been for my dad or that inspirational note Graham Henry left me, I would have been dead.
About 5 weeks later, Graham turned up, and the first time Daryl actually opened his hand and did anything resembling normal with it was when Graham Henry gave his shirt. Now, Daryl couldn't open his eyes at this stage, so I sort of got Daryl's eye open like this, and he sees the great, I could just see his eyeball, the All Black coach is there, and he's holding out his shirt, and Daryl just reaches out like this and grabs it, and latched onto it. And Graham said, look, I've got a game in 6 weeks against Australia, the Tri-Nations, and I said, your challenge, if you can get yourself there, then I want you to come as a guest of the All Blacks, which was all the motivation that was needed. And in the end, we got there.
Hey, buddy.
Well, and I would expect you to put the ball on.
And Ted, you have come from me the inspiration.
No, you're an inspiration to the boys because of the hard work you've done and where you've come from.
Yeah.
And they really respect what you've done. So does the coach.
Yeah.
Oh, Ted.
Oh, Ted.
Quite frankly, we're just amazed at what he's done. So against the odds, he's up and he's walking, and he's a really positive young man. So that's inspirational to us.
Great eye.
You've got us across the line too in a few test matches,
Yeah.
Daryl. Yeah, mate. So
Well,
it's good to have you on the sideline again this week. Good omen, I think.
I get you across the line
Yeah, I think
this
so.
Saturday, and
Yeah.
I know you will win.
Well, Daryl's a very keen rugby person, and he got the injury playing rugby, and he was apparently a very fine player as a young boy. So he's got a love of the game, and he's got a love of the All Blacks, and he sees Richie and Daniel and Mills and Kevy and Brad and all those people as his heroes. So they're obviously inspirational to him. And so this mutual admiration for each other, which is great.
Can you just tell me, seeing what happened to Daryl playing rugby? What is your concern for your players or players in general?
Well, it's a very unusual situation what Daryl got himself into, and I'm sure you've got that documented, so I won't go into the details. So he wasn't meant to play because he was suspect to that sort of injury. But that happens very, very, very rarely. Not as many times as people get knocked over in the street or whatever. So I don't think we should dwell on that too much personally.
Main thing is, this is our home ground, eh? So don't suck the dummy and finish that player off. Then the boys push out, tackle, tackle, tackle. As far as forwards that go, I think we've got the edge on them in the backs, and I hope to God that we go out there and prove it.
You got to get hard. You know, West are probably the hardest team we'll come up against. You don't make your tackles. You don't yeah, you won't win it. So a lot of rivalry on today.
Hauraki North versus Paiborough West, a provincial grudge match.
Yeah, make the ball early, eh? Go on. That's us. Let's go.
There's a heap of pressure on young guys to be the man and play through the pain. But that's when they're putting their bodies on the line and at the most risk of serious injury. Richard Pringle is a professor of sports sociology. His research focuses on rugby culture and injury.
Being a real New Zealand male is tied up with playing the game of rugby. And again, there's that attitude of go hard, be tough, don't give in to pain, don't be emotional. There are at times pressure from coaches, pressure from teammates, but I think more importantly, pressure from players that they don't want to let down their own teammates. They feel they're part of the team. And I think something like 22% of injuries on the field are re-injuries associated with returning to the game too early.
Our own reporter Dan Buckingham admits he probably returned to the game too early.
I was 18 years old, first year at uni down in Dunedin and playing club rugby. What happened was I'd actually had a pretty major injury that season, did some damage to my knee, so I'd sat out a few games and I was just getting back into playing. I'd played half a game and this was my first full game back when it happened. Essentially, the scrums were pretty messy and it came to one scrum with about 20 minutes to go in the game and I just put my head in the wrong place at the wrong time. One of my props, the other team charged in on us. One of my props tried to stand up, or did stand up. One prop went down. What I should have done in that situation is stand up with the prop that stood up. Instead, I tried to go down and I got caught halfway, which meant my head didn't get into the position. So all the weight of the scrum came through on the top of my head. That's 8 guys pushing onto my head. Something had to give, and it was my neck, which snapped. Fracture and dislocation at C6-7.
There's not so many spinal injuries in the scrum now, but that serious injury still happens. Today it's the big crunching hits that are the danger area. Nearly 60% of all rugby injuries are caused by tackles. "15-year-old Cody and 18-year-old Austin are 2 of this rugby season's casualties.
I pretty much remember everything. Because I play hooker, so I threw the ball in the line out, and our number 2 jumper dropped it, so I picked it up and sort of ran down the sideline. Got tackled, then our boys came behind to drive me, and then I sort of flipped over a guy's back and just landed on my head. And it's gone, couldn't feel anything from the nipple line down. I thought my legs were reasonably straight when I did it. And Mum came along, she said straighten your legs, because apparently they're all skewed out to the side and couldn't move them. Mum broke down in tears, but yeah, I think in the end I was one trying to support them more than them trying to support me, but I was all good with it. I always thought I was going to walk again, and I have, so.
Yeah, I was running, got a wee offload, and I don't actually know how I got tackled, but I was running and I got grabbed from the front and I kind of got dragged to the ground and I just landed wrong. And yeah, well, I got really bad pins and needles. I was trying to move and stuff, I couldn't do anything. The coach finally realised that, like, you know, I was on the ground and I was actually in shock because they could see it in my eyes that I was scared.
You have that, when you watch the games and that, it's exciting and he's all revved up and he just loves the game, and then you don't think about, you always know at the back of your mind that there's that serious thing that could happen, but it's not many people it happens to. It's like probably one in not many, so to have this happen at 15 is just a nightmare. It's just the last thing you want, you know, for your child, you know.
I didn't have a clue what it was. didn't know like that the spine was such a big part of your body. It controls everything. Like, you can't really do anything about it, like, it's just unlucky.
What is it about this game? You know, why are we playing this game that's causing such horrific injuries?
Yeah, when you put it like that, you know, it's kind of puts it in the context that it's hard to sort of describe and sort of justify, but there are so many good things about rugby. I mean, just team sport for a start, if you get into that, you know, just being able to put yourself up against an opposition and strive to win and all that.
Just once, you know, make a good tackle, and even if it hurts you, it's still like, yeah, you know, you got him to the ground.
I just hurt the other guy more.
Yeah. It's all about physicality though, like you want to hurt that guy that's running at you, and that's the thing, like, if you pull it off, then you're going to get confident. Just want to do it all day. I think if I went back to playing rugby, I'd probably break it again. Be too worried about it. Yeah, you got to go into things full-hearted, and if you go tentatively, you're going to do yourself some damage in that.
Well, there's been quite a bit of research looking at the influence of attitudes towards sport, and you've got to be able to risk injury and not be fearful of being hurt. So it's that ability to play with that sort of attitude, to play hard. And if you take that attitude on board and you do play hard, it is linked to injuries.
Again, guys, get organised. Don't rush it. Take your time about it. Be controlled before it's right. Get to the back.
I never saw rugby itself as a culprit, and didn't sort of, it would have been pointless to focus negative sort of hatred or energy on the game. It just came down to what happened, that sort of random occurrence where I put my head in the wrong place at the wrong time, and things just ended up the way they did.
They're going to be wanting to do the same game as us in the first half, eh? They're going to be wanting to hold on to the ball, take it up, take it up, take it up.
So let's start the second half like we're on top, like we should be, boys, eh?
Everyone up. Let's get over.
Out.
How many years of stuff?
Going out there with the hits and the raw boys. We'll go hit them hard. 1, 2, 3, 4!
Okay, boys, let's go. Come on, boys. Come on.
There's something about the game that, you know, so many people do love it, and I did really love playing it. And I guess it is, you know, trying to get to that stage where you make it safer, that these things don't happen, and if they do ever happen, I'm not sure. It's the nature of the game. And that's probably what draws us to it, as males with their male ego.
I mean, how are people expected to draw the line between playing hard and playing aggressively?
If you're good at tackling somebody and you can tackle them hard and you can knock them down in a legal, aggressive tackle, you become the hero in the team. If you knock someone down in a head-high tackle or hit somebody, then you're a dirty player. But there is a blurring between those two. So you do learn to use your body as a weapon.
I think it is a part of the culture of the game. In collision sport, the bigger the collision and those who dominate the collision definitely tend to dominate the game and win it.
Go, Steppy! Go, William, go! Here we go, just go for it! Go, Noodle!
Pick it up, Rooney.
Well, rugby is a tough game, and injury is a big problem. Not just for the player concerned, the coach and the rest of the team, but for the entire nation. Last year alone, there were 53,000 new claims to ACC for rugby injuries, with a total cost of $59 million.
The cost to the country through rugby injuries is quite phenomenal. It's hard to play a game of senior rugby and not come off the field being sore. So it's part of the culture, and you have to accept it as a normal part of the game.
Feel the pain of the loss, but next time will be the better team.
No, I was probably pretty naive when I was younger, where you just sort of rock on and you're indestructible and you play rugby, but you always bounce back. And the reality is you don't always bounce back.
The extent of the problem is recognised at the highest level. The Rugby Foundation was set up to help seriously injured players and works to make the game safer. Tonight's gala dinner is a combined charity event to raise money for spinal injury research. How hard is it, do you think, for some of these players to be here raising funds for people that have become permanently disabled through playing the game that they love?
Some of the guys, even, from time to time we actually have All Blacks that go into the spinal units at Burwood or Otara to go and see guys that are recently injured. Some of them really like doing that sort of work because they see it as contributing, and but for the grace of God, that could have been me. Others find it very, very difficult because it's almost too close to home. So I say with the top guys, the reaction is kind of a little bit mixed, but generally if they can support us, they'll do their utmost to do so, yeah.
How hard is it for you guys to see somebody, injured like that through the game that you obviously love?
Well, I guess there's realities of what you do that you can get injured. I suppose like a lot of things, there's risks with what you do, but and you hope it never happens to you. But when you see, I guess, fellow players end up in situations like that, you realise that obviously an unlucky accident, but you want to be able to help out wherever you can, and that's why the guys always, when it comes to anything like this, just want to do whatever we can. A lot of times you feel like you can't do a whole lot, but it's just that one little thing, or in this case, we're able to do quite a cool thing. I guess you're just proud to be able to do it.
No matter what happens to you, you're still gonna love the game. Like, it's such a good sport.
The difference between tragedy and comedy is just time, I think. Yeah. Needless to say, we have a lot of laughs now. But you should have taken your dad's advice in the first place, shouldn't you?
No.
So Dan, what did you think? You were worried it was going to be anti-rugby.
I was, but it's really good to talk about it, especially that staunch thing around injuries, which we just don't need.
The lives of Barney and Charlotte are forever affected by meningitis.
When I got closer, I saw a blood blemish on her neck, and I just knew her body was dying before our eyes.
Never thought I'd make it through, but with God's help and my family behind me, everything came.
Attitude was made with funding from New Zealand On Air.